Well, hello, and welcome to another edition of EcoTraining TV. We are coming to you live from the incredible Mashatu in Botswana. Yes, I know we aren't really live, but we are alive, and we are in Botswana. We get questions on a weekly basis about what EcoTraining has to offer, what we do, how it works, how long are the courses. We are here to answer. We've got some of our instructors and managers of our Mashatu camp together, and this is what they had to say.
Okay, a safari guide would typically be working at a game lodge. So he'd be taking guests out on morning drives, afternoon drives, and that would be his main function, would be dealing with guests, mostly in the case of doing game drives. A field guide would be more focused on walking, so he might not specifically be based at a lodge because he would be more highly qualified and would possibly work as a freelance for different walking people that specialize in walking safaris. A ranger would be something completely different. A ranger would have very little to do with the public, whereas a field guide and a nature guide are both directly involved with their guests, a very personal relationship with their guests. But a game ranger is somebody that works out in the field. In Kruger National Park, you would have the park divided into various sections, and each section would be run by a game ranger with his team, and he would be responsible for fixing the boreholes, for maintaining the roads, for anti-poaching. He would be like a farm manager.
Obviously it depends on what course you're going to do. For example, if you're a keen birder and you come along to one of our birding courses, then excellent, you're going to upskill yourself so that you will definitely be able to use it again when you're out with your birding group or wherever you decide to go. Spending time in the wilderness in our eco-training camps is basically going to change your life altogether anyway. You're coming out of that environment, which is a city where life is so busy and so fast, and it just does not stop. And it's the first time, once you immerse yourself in this environment, that you actually get time to think about life, about your place in the environment, and also about how you actually feel about things. So I think going back from after doing one of our courses from a week to a month to a year long, you have a different perspective on your own life when you do go back to the city or wherever you've come from. And then of course the knowledge that you gain on these courses, from anything from animal behavior to just situational awareness, to dealing with people, to putting yourself in an environment where it can be a little bit stressful for yourself. We do sleep outs where you go and you sleep under the stars. You're not in a fence and you're not in a tent. Okay, so you learn a lot about yourself in that respect. In my opinion, I've done a lot of the eco-training courses and I don't think it is particularly expensive from where I've come from. A lot of the time I was working in London, so earning the pound, or I was in New Zealand, so earning the New Zealand dollar. And when you think about what you're actually getting on one of these courses, I mean, you'll get all your accommodation, you get all your food, you're getting your 24 hours a day in this bush environment. You have expert instructors that have all got their level 3s that have been in this environment for such a long time, the stories they tell. So if you think about your normal rent that you'd pay, food that you'd pay for, anything else, transport, depending where you come from, then this course does end up being less expensive than your normal everyday life.
No, I mean, you can choose to do this course even if you don't want to be a field guide, and a little bit later venture into conservation or even gain experience to run your own lodge in the future. But also some people would like to gain experience before they travel and explore Africa.
Short birding, tracking courses that can be 6 days, 7 days long. Then you've got 2 weeks courses, a little bit more in depth. And then you have our Trails Guide course, which is a good 28 days of immersing yourself walking in the bush every single day, every morning, every afternoon, which is great. And then our longest course that we actually run as one entire course itself is our Field Guide Level 1 course, which is a total of 2 months, so 55 days. And then of course, if you'd like to do more courses, you can do our professional field guide course, which is a year long, and it just incorporates takes the best basically, I think, of all the courses and merges them into about 4 to 5 months length of time. and then you end up doing a placement for another 5 to 6 months.
It's not possible. Practical experience is essential on this profession, because you have to know how to deal with potentially dangerous animals. It is not only the knowledge, but you have to have practical skills.
Okay, as far as knowing English, having a basic knowledge of being able to communicate in English, I think is very important. If your English isn't very good when you arrive, it will be excellent when you leave, because everyone speaks English here. So a lot of the time you also will have people helping you. So I personally would not come to one of these courses with no English, just as a safety issue. You need to be able to follow instructions, for example, if you're out walking or in a vehicle, and if you can't understand kind of the basic communication of English, it could pose a problem.
A typical day in the life of a student, it's a action-packed day, very full of content. The students would generally wake up at about 5 o'clock in the morning. Then they would gather at about 5:30 for a light breakfast, and then at 6 o'clock they'd set out on their activities, which may be a walking activity or it may be for a game drive, and that would be right up until about 10 o'clock in the morning. They would then return to camp for breakfast, and then generally after breakfast there would be a lecture, about an hour and a half or a 2-hour lecture. Then they would be given an opportunity to rest and to catch up on their notes and the stuff that they've learned over that day. And then they would regroup again for lunch at about 3 o'clock. And then after 3 o'clock the activities would go out on an activity again, on a field activity, which would be again a game drive or a walk. And then they would return to camp in time for dinner at about 7 o'clock. And then generally after dinner it would just be informal, relaxing and chat around the campfire. So a pretty full day, but beautiful days, lots and lots of interesting things happening.
The most important thing is to host your guests, taking them out and show them the wilderness, and basically waking up in the morning and go to bed as late as you can. The whole thing is to share nature as much as you can with your students, what is happening around.
All our camps are situated in Big 5 areas, so there is Big 5 game around. None of them are fenced, so you do have animals wandering into camp, which is an excellent experience. It's quite basic accommodation, so you're in a tent, it's always shared. It ranges from little dome tents that are about 3 by 3 meters, the little mattress on the floor, all the way to our tents in Makaliki, which have an ensuite bathroom. So quite a big difference there. Most of the time you're sitting around a braai, so there's always a nice braai under the stars, and there's a nice big lecture room which has got a roof, which is handy when it rains, to do a lot of our lecture activities as well. But it's all our camps, you feel very isolated, but isolated in a good kind of in the wilderness, you know, actually amongst the environment that you're studying.
I will say some people do it, but it's not very common. And the reason being that you learn a lot from these courses or in this profession. And if you don't use it, you lose it. The moment you are away doing other stuff or at your workplace for months, you come back, you kind of start learning stuff that you learned before. So it's good to keep continuation of what you're doing.
Employment opportunities are going to be slightly different depending on where you're from. The great thing about our year-long program, the Professional Field Guide course, is that it does have a 5 to 6 month section within a lodge, so on a lodge placement. And that just means that you get exposed to the lodge environment without having to worry about visas and everything along those lines. Where you're working under lodge management and you're working with some experienced guides and you're gaining all that experience, but you're also getting those connections as well. So you're meeting people that might provide other opportunities for you in the future with regards to employment. There is the opportunity to come back to our camps as a backup, as part of a placement, all after one of our courses. We choose backups based on their professionalism and their enthusiasm and their love basically of the environment, of nature, hard-working, obviously. It's obviously it's an environment where you're going to be working very hard, and at times it can be obviously really hot or pour with rain and tensile flood and those sorts of things. So you have to be quite sturdy, but we choose our backups based on their resilience and their enthusiasm. Basebush is also a great place to look for job opportunities, but having been trained by a company such as EcoTraining, they've got such a good reputation that having that on your CV is definitely going to help you get that first step in the door. If you're not from South Africa, so visas are a little bit more hard to come by, the key word here is persistence. I mean, obviously I'm working in Botswana at the moment for EcoTraining, and I'm from New Zealand. I don't have any connection here otherwise, and I was just persistent over a period of time, a reasonably long period of time actually. And as long as you are, the opportunities will come up, and you just need to take them when they do come up.
We hope we've answered some of your questions, and please do not hesitate to send us more. And please remember to like, share, subscribe to all of our social media platforms. Without you, this won't be possible. We hope to be hearing from you soon, but until the next time, goodbye.